Wait, sounds right. Yeah, we're at the bottom Mishnah. Okay, now this Mishnah is a very, very subject, a very big machlokas between the Bavli and Yerushalmi. Very big. Let's see the Perush Chai is there on the show. Mamish, the way to learn the Mishnah is a very big machlokas here between the Bavli and Yerushalmi, which is. I have to tell you, when I was speaking to Rabbi, I was Rabbi Rickman's house for a couple of hours because he knows my family. He was Mitzvah Kedusha by my in-laws. So I said, one of the best friends of Yerushalmi is Lieberman. So he said his father-in-law was very good friends with Lieberman. His father too. His father-in-law was the Rav in Buffalo. His name was Zuckerman, and they're very good friends. Except that when Lieberman put out the conservative ksuva, his father-in-law called up Lieberman and said, "Listen, you're my good friend, but I can't go on under these circumstances." So after that, they never spoke again. Lieberman held his father-in-law in very high esteem, and when his mother-in-law had to go into a special hospital, which only Lieberman could get him in, so Lieberman immediately was metapel in it and made sure it happened. Anyway, so he said over Maisa, it's a long Maisa, but it's interesting. Rivkin said he was a rabbi in Seattle once. It was in Israel. He was a rabbi in Seattle in the early 60s, right? Yeah, that's where he was Messiah Kedusha for my in-laws, because they're both from Seattle. So so at the time, there was an Israeli student there. It must have been the mid-60s, and the Israeli student was getting married, and for some reason he invited Rabbi Rivkin, but he was getting married by the conservative rabbi, it was Michal Shabbos, in a treif hotel, and one of the Eidim was going to be the Michal Shabbos conservative rabbi and one of his congregants. So he said, "I can't go to your wedding." So then the father of the Chassan called from Tel Aviv and asked that please Rabbi Rivkin should go to at least somebody Orthodox should be at the wedding. So he said he's still not going to go. So this fellow from Tel Aviv called Rabbi Rivkin's father. So Rabbi Rivkin said his father said to him, was Rosh Yeshiva Torah Vadas, said, "Try and do something, see if you can go." So he said I was covered of his father. He went to the conservative rabbi's study, and he didn't have to because he never had anything to do with the conservative rabbi before. And he in Seattle, the Orthodox were the more powerful. The Orthodox shul was always the preeminent shul. But he went and he spoke to them. He spoke to the conservative rabbi. He wouldn't budge. So the conservative rabbi said, "Just a minute, I'll call." Because he said, "I want you to have Shomer Shabbos Eidim." So he said, "I'll call the chancellor of JTS." So he got the chancellor of JTS on his phone. He said the chancellor's name at the time was Greenberg. I thought it was Finkelstein, but maybe it was maybe Greenberg was somebody else. I don't know exactly who it was. Right? Didn't sound familiar, right? I think it probably was Finkelstein, but I wasn't going to say anything. So he got the chancellor on the phone, and the chancellor said, "I want to speak. Let me speak to Rabbi Rivkin." So Rabbi Rivkin said, "I don't want to speak to him. I have nothing to do with him." I said, "No, he insisted, so he got on the phone, and the chancellor started berating him. Said, "How can you impugn my rabbi, who had our musmach that we have out there, So Rabbi Rivkin says, I said to him, "Listen, I don't owe you anything. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do anything." So somehow or another, they agreed, though, that, the conservative rabbi and him agreed that they would send a letter to Saul Lieberman and ask Lieberman what to do. And so he sent that letter. Rabbi Rivkin sent a letter to Lieberman and said, "Mahadin, lefi Shulchan Aruch Hayoshan shalonu, im Rav Michal Shabbos Yechol Yosei, etc., etc." So Lieberman sent back a response. He said, "Ilule shata ben Yedidi or Rav Rivkin, or ben Yedid nafshi, chasan Yedid nafshi, Rav Zuckerman lo yisi meshiv lecha." Well, now you should know I'm responding because you are who you are, and there's no such thing as a Shulchan Aruch HaYoshan. We only have one Shulchan Aruch in Klal Yisrael. What kind of thing you were saying here? What kind of, he was being sarcastic, obviously, but Maisa, to make a long story short, Lieberman told the conservative rabbi that he has to let Rabbi Rivkin be Masada Kedushin, take kosher Eidim, and make the Chasna kosher, And a week later, he had the chance of JTS called Rabbi Rifkin and apologized to him.
Really?
Yeah. So that had to be a limud schus for our using the Professor Lieberman's Yerushalmi Eruvin. All right. So after that, let me show you what the Bavli has. The way the Bavli learns this Mishnah, if I can find it, is that you have two porches, one across the street from the other, and they're over a water. They're not across the street, but they're both over water. And no, that's the difference between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. According to Yerushalmi, they're one on top of the other. According to the Bavli, though, they are side by side like this. But I can't find a picture now. I find the pictures later on, but not a picture of this. Zayin Bavli. Here it is. There's a Mishnah on page $1. This is the way the Bavli has it. So you have one gzustra here, and another gzustra here. These are called gzustras. This is called the Elyoina, this is called the Tachtona. And you have the bucket going down through a hole in the Elyoina. Okay? That's how the Bavli learns the Maisa. The Yerushalmi is going to learn, it'll be evident from the Yerushalmi that one is on top of the other. Not like this. Okay? Imagine they're both one on top of the other, kind of like this picture over here. Okay? So says the Mishnah Yerushalmi, Ktsutsa shilamala minayam, ein mali mena elikin osum la mechitza gva asar tvachim. So first it says you have to have a wall 10 tvachim. See the wall over here? The wall 10 tvachim. Yaakov? The wall 10 tvachim going down. Bein milamala and bein milamata. Whether on top or whether down below. Now, according to Rashi in the Bavli, bein milamala, bein milamata means that this hole can be either over here, or below, that's milamaton, or on top of the platform would be milamalon. Okay? But the way Yerushalmi is going to learn, milamalon means here, just below the platform. Milamaton means on the water, down by the water. Actually, it has to be by the water. Okay, the Gemara Yerushalmi is going to stress that. That was one, now two. Zulamal and Bizu. Again, according to the Bavli, they're in sequence. According to the Yerushalmi, they're going to be one on top of each other. If they made one of these walls for the upper one and not for the lower one, they can't both fill up water until they make an eruv with each other. Because obviously going through the middle top one, through the bottom one, so they have to have an eruv together in order to do this. Rabbi Zir and Rabbi Yehuda B'Shem Rav said, this wall, when it's lamaton, it's got to be that the wall is literally touching the water and going into the water, the extent to which a bucket drags in the water, which we learned earlier in the Masechtas 4 Tvachim. So actually this wall is to extend down into the water, 4 Tvachim into the water. Now, there are many different interpretations of what exactly what exactly is going on here. What does it mean that they're both using Rishus Achas? So it seems that if this is the case, that first I'll tell you how Lieberman explains it. Reb Chaim Kanievsky doesn't really know what to do with this. But the way Lieberman explains it, he is told that what it means is that when you're making the walls down by the water's edge as opposed to up here, so if you have two gzustros, one on top of each other, so you're going to have two circles down here, because obviously they weren't married together, right? So they weren't married together. Each one has their own concentric circle. So if they're both having their own concentric circle, so then not concentric circles, but going to be side by side too. But they each have their own circles, so they're both lowering their buckets in the same area into the difference. The truth is, the way Lieberman explains, it has to be concentric circles. He says the way the circles work is that there's one like this and one like this, and the bucket going in the inner circle is also going in the airspace of the outer circle. So therefore, both rishus are using one rishus. Now that's very convoluted, as you can tell. I'm even having difficulty explaining it. I don't know why they don't learn Pashut. Once we know the Yerushalmi holds that it's two gzustros zulam malamizu, that means that the bucket is going down through a common area, right? They're both using a common area in order to get down into the water. So it sounded like from the Mishnah, if also a yon of a lawsuit tachtona shteina say suros archiarvu, right? If they made for the upper one and not for the bottom one, they're both also till they made an eruv. But it sounds like if only one of them made, right? Only the other one made, right? They made for the tachtona and not the elyoina. In other words, they made a structure for the tachtona down and below and not for the elyoina. So that's good enough for the tachtona at least. So why? The rest of the week, at least, uses that area. Maybe on Shabbos they're prevented from doing so. But Lamaisa, this is a rishus which is in common to both under normal conditions. Because again, both of these stros are one on top of the other. They both have holes, one on top of the other, right? So they both really intend to use this hole. So even if they're not making, even if only Tachtoina made the contraption, and it's by itself, Lamaisa, this is a rishus which is common to both of them. How can you possibly use it? Unless maybe the Elyonim made a bittul rishus.
It sounds like a drisas regel.
Right, exactly. It's a drisas regel problem. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Right, because low, upper, even though they didn't make an eruv together, Lamaisa, the Elyonim has drisas regel, meaning the drisas atli. Right, it lowers its bucket through that hole. So the Yerushalmi doesn't answer. Leaves it difficult. Okay, good question. Amar Ravun said, the wall has got to be within 3 tvachim of the gzustra. Now, there are two different ways of learning this: Reb Chaim's way and Lieberman's way. According to Reb Chaim, it means that he is holding that we're talking about a wall up here. And the wall up here has to be within 3 tefachim of the actual platform, where the wall is above. According to Lieberman, the wall is down by the water, but it has to be within 3 tefachim of the hole, meaning it has to be aligned. It can't be misaligned. Again, you might be able to lower your bucket somehow, even to a misaligned hole, but it's got to be within 3 tefachim of the imaginary straight line, the hole which is above it. Okay? Now, Barachina ben Akav is a special kula. His kula is like this. If I can find it. Yeah. You can have this mechitza. Stretching out, but you don't really need it. You can make an imaginary one. If you have enough of a square, which is 4 by 4 amos, that you could hypothetically bend. See, here's the unfolded. Here's the way where your platform actually looks like 4 by 4 amos. You could actually use then you have 4 by 4 tvachim, actual hole in the middle, and you make imaginary slits and folds in your platform so that it would be a 10 by 10 tefach, 10 tefach by 10 tefach pipe going down. So as long as the platform is dimensioned 4 by 4 amos, it's as if we folded in the sides and made it like that. Okay? Yeah, that is the Bavli. Now, well, again, you take off the top, and you can put a bucket down and fill it up. Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Yaz said, "V'ushesh b'nekav arba tvachim." It's gotta be that the hole itself could be 4 by 4 tvachim, and v'ushesh b'rochav arba, that the platform itself is 4 by 4 amos. V'ushe mechitzas kavos a certain order that it should be able to make mechitzas of 10 tvachim, were we to bend down on all sides. However, in Baba they said, I feel ein mechitzas kavos asora. Even if you can't make 10 tefach high walls on all sides. Why? Because Nazis comishmer is chad. It could be like this, it could be 3-shaped. There's no requirement that it actually be a hypothetical square. It can even be a V. And if it would be a V, so then actually on 2 sides you need slightly less than 10 tvachim, right? As long as you have 10 tvachim on 2 sides, so the other side, the truth is, you might not need a 10 tefach on any side. It could be like a funnel, right? So as long as so you don't need the actual amount to be able to fold 10 tefach down, because if it's a funnel, it requires less substance, something like that. Okay. In other words, you could shave off part. Imagine instead of coming to a square end, it came to a very narrow end. It would achieve the same purpose. So therefore, it can even be slightly less than 4 by 4 amos, and it'd be enough to fold down in order to form a funnel shape. If not, if you couldn't form a square shape, okay? You save a few inches. Rabbi Amar Kume Rabbi Chia Mutal Malos. You're allowed to fill up through such a hole. Vasili Shpoch, you're not allowed to spill through such a hole. Spill sewage. Now, tell you about the hygiene in the old days, right? The same hole they used to pour up water is the same hole they used to spill sewage through. But he's saying you're not allowed to on Shabbos. Amar lei, so he said to him, Kadimne chachomim nimna lochim hon. This is a sarcastic comment, saying, when we enumerate the Gdolei Hador, we're going to include you in the list. As if you said, you said a big chiddush, right? Says Amar Rabbana Megar, he was mocking him. Megar is like scoffing him. Amar Rabbi Yossi, no. Yossi Rabun said, Milo Amar Le. Milo is a praise, a word of praise. He was praising him. Mutter Lamalos, he liked his words. Mutter Lamalos, why is it mutter to fill up? Shememali mi mechitz also, because you're makpi to fill up carefully, nothing spills. And therefore you're going to go specifically through the allotted hole. Vasel lishpoch, now to spill sewage, because on the contrary, a person's not makpi to spill through the hole. Sheshofe chutz mechitzaso, and that's why you're dafka allowed to pull up and not allowed to throw down. Okay, because of carelessness in the process of cat throwing out your bad water. No, right, shouldn't go to be motzi, of course. I have to have our priorities right. The Rabbi Chanani ben Akavi made this deal and said he can look at it as if he fall down sides, it's only in the Kinneret. Why? Shahori makifimosa. Because surrounded by mountains, so it's got walls. Now the walls are very distant, but it's got walls. What? But all right, that's good enough because that makes it oyster shusarami, and that's why I allowed it. So it's all karmelis drabanan anyway, because in top water. But all right, that's why it was mako. Rabbi Lezer Shor Rabbi Yochanan, yes, Rabbi Yochanan. Hain pusrus. Now, leave it brings down the proper girsa is prostus. It's a Greek word. Well, when was the last time you guys went through Shar Yafo? Long time ago, huh? Shar Yafo you have to go curve, right? Remember? If you're coming by foot, you can't go straight, you go through and then you make a sharp turn. Is this ringing a bell? No? You can't, make a sharp turn to the left. Yeah. No, when you're coming into the old city. Maybe it's when you leave the old city. Come in front into Shar Yafo. You come in this way, and then you turn that way, and that way is the shuk, right? Straight ahead of you is the shuk. No, I'm talking about that actual entrance. I'm not talking about the actual covered passageway, not the general approach to the koso. So that's called the prustus, because in the old days, in order to slow down approaching armies or horsemen, they would make a bend. You couldn't go straight into a gate. You have to actually veer in order to get into the city. Okay? What? They go directly straight in Chicago. Why is that? What's after this fire? What does that have to do with the fire, though? What? All right. Sounds like an old wives' tale. In any event, so the shaila is, if you have a Shusharim which goes through that, if you have a Shusharim which goes through that prustus, does it break through a Shusharim because it has to bend? The Shusharim has to bend at that point. That's so. Says Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, Ha'ohein prustus zorach mitochel Shusharabim. If you throw from it into Shusharabim, Shusharabim from Shusharabim into it, what's its status? Amar lei, so he said, according to your question, I perceive that ein Rishus Harabim loylam. You are the prustus breaks the Rishus Harabim, so there is no Rishus Harabim, because every Rishus Harabim goes through a prustus, and wherever it goes through a prustus, it breaks it up. There is no Rishus Harabim. Yeah, I know what that Rishus Harabim, it's got to go straight from one end of the world to the other. If it breaks up in the middle, it's no good. By the way, it's a big machlokas achronim about Manhattan. I write about it in my book, because Rav Moshe held that mefulash, halacha, is not like the Yerushalmi. He holds mefulash just means that you can get through, but not that it has to go directly straight. Not that it has to be mechuvan. So it's like, it sounds from the Yerushalmi. Maybe Yerushalmi could be learned like Rav Moshe, because he doesn't have between mefulash and mechuvan. Says, I was trying to require mechuvan that be direct, but he says that's not true. It doesn't be direct. It has to be accessible. So he says, if you, let's say you have a bridge which comes to the city over here, and there's a street which goes down here, and then there exits the city over there, so that's called mefulash, even though it's not mechuvan. Mechuvan would be if it went directly across. The example he gives is that the meaningful of Dr. Spadell, although I don't know about the rest of you, is that the Washington Bridge comes into Manhattan at 181st Street, and the George Washington Bridge leaves Manhattan at 178th Street. So it goes like that, right? So the Shah, according to Moshe, that's exactly the case that he and Rabbi Kasher argued about. According to Moshe, that's Rishus Harabim, because it's mefulash. You can go from one to the other. According to Rabbi Kasher, it's not Rishus Harabim because it's not mechuvan. So it sounds from the Yerushalmi not like Rav Moshe. It sounds like Rabbi Kasher. That even here, you just have to make a corner, but it's still accessible. But that array according to Reish Lakish cancels Rishus Harabim. Okay? Now, of course, Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold that way. Rabbi Yochanan is the famous opinion who holds that Yerushalayim, where its doors not closed at night, would be Rishus Harabim. So he obviously paskins that if it's open, even if it's not direct, it still is Rishus Harabim. That's what he's saying, Reish Lakish. He's saying that according to you, there'll never be Rishus Harabim in the world, right? Now, in fact, Michlav Shitas Reish Lakish, we have a Kasher Reish Lakish. Sound like from Reish Lakish that there is a Rishus Harabim. It's just got to be Mefulish, Misofa, Olam, Vad Sofa, right? Well, we have another statement named Rabbi Shlokish. D'Amar Ein Rishus Harabim, Loilam, Boilam Hazeh, Elosi Lovo. There's no Rishus Harabim, Loilam Hazeh at all. It's a whole theoretical concept. It doesn't actually exist. Well, people don't know this Yerushalmi, otherwise they'd be building Eruvin in the middle of interstates. So Shneimar says, Kol Gei Yinosei. In the world to come, all hills will be leveled. Valleys will be raised and hills will be flattened. So then they're just surrounded because it's easy to travel. But now when everything goes, all roads go up and down, at some point, so he holds there's no Rishus Harabim. Okay? Masnisa pliga Reish Lakish. The Mishnah argues on Reish Lakish. The Mishnah says, Eizu Rishus HaYachid. What's Rishus HaYachid? Shvilei Beis Galgal. V'chein kayotze behem. And similar things which are extraordinarily steep. Rishus HaYachid, the Shabbos, Rishus Harabim Tumah. By Shabbos, Rishus HaYachid, because they're not easy to travel. By Tumah, the Rishus Harabim, because it only takes 3 people in order to make a Rishus Harabim for Tumah. But we see that it's only these extraordinarily steep pathways which are not Rishus Harabim B'Zman Hazeh. But anything else can be a Rishus Harabim B'Zman Hazeh. Period. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish says there's no Rishus Harabim in Olam Hazeh at all. Yeah, only Shvilei Beis Galgal, which are extraordinarily steep, are precluded from being Rishus Harabim. Mashma, everything else could be Rishus Harabim. Okay, that's the right. It says more further. Might be. Oh, you mean because it's Mishnah, not a Brisa? Okay. In Yerushalmi, they're more lax about that. I don't think that they necessarily had the hard and fast rules about who could argue on what. But maybe in Chanami, when it says Pliga, in the Bavli, Bavli, we would say Tuvta. We don't have the word Tuvta in Yerushalmi. We never saw the word Tuvta used in Yerushalmi.
They just don't answer.
Yeah, they just go on. They never. Yeah. Right, but that didn't bother. It was the Bavli, he's right. If it was the Bavli, we would do that, but it's Yerushalmi. So, okay, Mishari is Reish Lakish, let's go on.
Reish Lakish was not quoted.
No, it's not quoted. Absolutely not. Says Mar, Rabbi Yossi Alini Sukkah. Rabbi Yossi only made a statement in Bizavi Sukkah. Now, we don't know what his statement is, but his statement is that a Mechitza Tluya is Materis. A wall which hangs down is Matir, even if it hangs more than 3 feet above the ground, because he holds, we say, Good aches mechitza. The walls go down, not just up. Avlin Shabbos ap Rabbi Yossi moideh. But in terms of Shabbos, also Rabbi Yossi concedes that we only say good asek and not good aches. Mil said Rabbi Chino Amar Avlin Shabbos. Rabbi Chino holds even by Shabbos say good asek, good aches. The Mar Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Chino said Shilton Bol Tzipori. A governor came to Tzipori. The Tolo Katios, and they, in order to carry in his honor, I guess, they hung no, it's nothing to do with his honor. The Roman legions hung for him banners, sheets or banners, and these banners were 10 tefachim high, but they were off the ground. But on that basis, Rehita Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi Tauto Tachteim B'Shita Zoviv. Rabbi Yossi allowed people to carry where the banners were based on his father's shita, then mechitza tluya is materis. It's interesting. The Bavli, where it brings down Smaisa, says Rabbi Yossi didn't hold of his son's psak. Rabbi Yossi was already dead. It's Rabbi Shmuel's innovation. But the Yerushalmi says that Rabbi Shmuel was following his father's psak, and then mechitza tluya is materis, according to Rabbi Yossi's father. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Mishim, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Asid Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Rabbi Chananya." That which Rabbi Yossi says is going to look Rabbi Chananya. Al Shitas Rabbi Yochanan, and they both argue on Rabbi Yochanan. And they both argue Rabbi Yochanan, who says that mechitza tluya is not matir. Demar, it should be Rabbi Yossi Berachina. Rabbi Yossi Berachina said that Rabbi Yudah and Rabbi Yossi and Chananya ben Akavia shlosh amud reach. They all said the same thing. What's that? Mechitza tluya tanteres. Rabbi Yehuda dikshorim b'fuloshim. That's a very strange thing. The Pagilian Shah says it's a major boo-boo. Gishorim b'fuloshim means that under a bridge you can carry. The thing is, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda's matir is not because of mechitza tluya, because of pitikra. Pitikra v'soisim. So again, Ashashi says it's a mistake. What the Rabbi Yehuda we're referring to really here is Rabbi Yehuda said that when you have a water hole between 2 chatzeros, they can carry on the basis of a wall which goes over the top of the chatzeros, even over the top of the water hole, even though it doesn't actually enter the water hole, which is something we had earlier. I don't know if I can find it quickly, but you probably remember, just had a couple of Mishnayos ago, that the wall just has to be on top, not necessarily in. Oh, you get the picture. The wall just has to run on top of the lake or pond. It doesn't have to descend into the lake or pond. That's sufficient. But the truth is, Reb Chaim Kanievsky says very beautifully. He says, I have an alternative. He says it could be going like Rabbi Yehuda says, Geshar Mefulashim. Here, this is the case. See, Rabbi Yehuda held even the Mechitza Tluya, which goes above the watering hole, is sufficient. It doesn't have to be within the cavity of the border. But Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says, Pitikra by two walls is a different type of thing than Mechitza Tluya. But Rabbi Yehuda held that Pitikra works in that case of Geshar Mefulashim, even if there are no walls. Or the bridge is held up in stilts. It doesn't have halachic walls on the other two sides. So Pitikra on all four sides is the same halacha as Mechitza Tluya. And that's why the Gemara equates Geshar Mefulashim with Mechitza Tluya. Now, I don't know if Reb Chaim's right. He doesn't know if he's right. Because Pitikra, after all, one tefach is enough. And here, for Mechitza Tluya, the pashas are requiring 10 tefachim. But nonetheless, it's possible to say that the lumdus is the same. The Pitikra works on all four sides. It's the same thing as saying that Mechitza Tluya works. And that's why the Yerushalmi is comparing the two. Rabbi Yossi had the sukkah. Rabbi Yossi was said in sukkah that you can have a wall hanging down. That's the wall of your sukkah. Rabbi Chaim Ekavia, the Tan, as we learned, allowed three things. The main one which concerns us is Hiter Ketzutra, right? That was a dangling wall, right? The wall we folded on all four sides in imaginary fashion is a dangling wall. So that dangling wall, Rabbi, he said, was sufficient to be matir the water. Also, is matir two other things which are not relevant to our sugya. Eitz Shabbayom. He said you're allowed to use seaweed to do atmana on Shabbos. It's not considered to be davar and mosif hevel. It's not considered to add heat. And I've also learned he's allowed you to carry a wet towel on Shabbos. It's not afraid that you're going to squeeze it out. Okay? Rabbi Yossi said, Hadat Omar b'mishtamshos derech hanekev. Now this goes back in the Mishnah. And what it means to say is that where you need an eruv is where they're both using the same hole. But if each one's throwing his bucket over the side, right, then they don't have to make an eruv between the two of them because each one has a separate way of collecting water. The Tani came and we learned Sholosh Ketzaitza Zua Gabizu. If you have three balconies, one on top of each other, you're not allowed to go from the top one to the bottom one through the middle one. But you're allowed to go from a courtyard to a roof, and it's not a problem. Why is that? Because from a courtyard to a roof is considered to be one rishus. You're not going through another rishus in the middle, and therefore that's okay. The only problem is when there's another rishus in the middle. Well, I should say chutz and gag belong to the same person. I don't even know if you have to say that because we said chatzeros gargos and karpefos kulan mishusachas. You don't have to belong to the same person. You're allowed to carry from one person's chutzner to another person's gag as long as it didn't start or end in the house, right? So we carry from a chutzner to a gag is okay. But where you have three balconies, one on top of the other, you can't carry from the top one to the bottom one. Even if the middle one, even if the top one is yours and the bottom one is yours. If the middle one belongs to another person. Okay, then he can't go. Now on that, Amar Shur Rabbi Yitzchak Kadodat Amar Bifnim. I'm a chutz aser. And that's only on the inside, but not on the outside. Now, everybody changed the girsa from mibachutz aser to mibachutz muter. But Reb Lieberman says it's very difficult to change the girsa because the Rach, the Bible brings down the girsa as it is in the Yerushalmi. So the only reason we have did not change the girsa. So you can do it still, but he says it's difficult, but he doesn't know how to learn the Gemara without changing the girsa. But I have a way to do it. I think I have a way to do it. That which you're allowed to carry, right, mina chotzer legag is only mibifnim. Mibifnim means, I think what the Yerushalmi is learning is that, well, I think it's going to, no, but I think what it means is that it's going back to where you have three on top of each other. And it's saying there's a kind of a line missing here. Saying, I asked you to go from one to the top one to the bottom one, even if you own the top and bottom, if you don't own the middle. However, I'll be mad to you, mibifnim, but not be bachutz. What does bifnim and not be bachutz mean? Imagine a scenario in which you have a case where you can do it on the inside, because you have, let's say, a hole between your top level and your bottom level. And it's on the inside, meaning that it's close to where you're standing, and you're not going over a side. Why is that okay? Because then the object will go directly up and down. But mibachutz it's also, meaning if you toss it over the side, hoping it's going to get to the bottom, that's also because then it might land on the middle balcony. So bifni means where you have a direct route on the inside where you can direct it up and down. Suppose mibachutz where you have to toss it over the outside where you cannot. I had a better shot this morning, I forgot. No, I had a better shot. Sorry. Scratch that one. I was making it up, I just realized that. I made up a better one this morning. Which is, on the inside, underneath, this is even going a chotzer lagag, or gag chotzer. It's mutter on the inside and on the outside, because on the inside, if it falls, where's it going to fall? Into Rishus HaYochid. But if you toss it over the outside, from the chotzer to the gag, or from the gag to the chotzer actually, where might it fall? To Rishus HaRabim. So Chazal allowed you to go from one level to another level, where if it falls, it's nish geferlach, goes into Rishus HaYochid. So they didn't allow you to go from one level to another level, where if it falls, it'll be very geferlach, because it'll fall into Rishus HaRabim. Okay? So that's it saying, Rabbi Zirah beime b'chutz beime ifnim aser. He says, regardless, it's aser, because maybe even if it's over Rishus HaYochid, he's afraid it's going to fall to the middle. You have three levels, one on top of the other. So Rabbi Zero, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yitzchak says you can throw it on the inside, where underneath you is Rishus HaYochid. You can't throw it on the outside, where underneath you is Rishus HaRabim. Why? Because suppose Rishus HaYochid is Nish Geferlach, and it falls in the middle one, it's also Nish Geferlach. Even though it doesn't belong to you. Because it's only Nissa D'Rabbanan, not Nissa D'Oraisa. But he says it is, Rabbi Zero says it is Geferlach. That just like it's also less than fall to Rishus HaRabim, it's also less than fall into the middle or into Rishus HaYochid as well. Why? Because L'maisa, it's Nissa D'Rabbanan. And Rabbanan didn't want to allow you to take chances and carry in a place where there is no Eruv, right? Says more Masisa Pliga Rabbi Zira. 1 second, this Mishnah argues Rabbi Zira. What did it say? It says, Mishalshin Gederatz Basir Me'al Gabi Zisha Gavot Sora V'Rochav Arba. You're allowed to lower a piece of a pot of meat from a platform, which is 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim wide, which is one Rishus HaYochid. You're allowed to lower from that to your lower level. Only if there's a window in the middle, then it's aser. Why? Because then the window is going because then you're going directly through his domain. In other words, if let's say this is my top platform and this is my bottom platform and your middle platform is over here, so then I'm allowed to lower from my platform to your platform because it's going from my land, my area to my area. That's a raya against Rabbi Zira, because Rabbi Zira said I can't go from here to here, because where might it fall? On the middle one. The only time this price answers is if when I'm lowering from my platform to my platform, I have to go through a window in the middle platform, because then I'm using his rishus to get from my rishus to my rishus. So that's no good. Okay? But it's a raya against Rabbi Zira because of the Reisha. Because Reisha says I can go from my platform to my platform where I'm not using a window via your platform, which is in the middle. Okay? Ma'avei Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak. What does Rav Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak say about this case? Why is this also in the Seifa? So Pasala b'Shavet. He says it's talking about a case where you have to go through the middle platform because there's no way out, right? The middle platform is directly between, it's a sandwich between the two other platforms. That which is matir is what he called mi bifnim. Where's mi bifnim? Where you can go from your platform to the other platform without going through the middle platform because you're both on the inside and he's slightly on the outside. But where you have to go through his in order to get from yours to the one, from yours to yours, that Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak answers, and that works out very well. So he can distinguish between the Reish of the Brisa, where it's mi bifnim, where the platforms are staggered, and the Seifa, where it's shaveh, meaning the platforms are directly one on top of the other. But according to Rabbi Zia, there's no such distinction. He goes wherever there's a middle platform which belongs to somebody else, even if it's staggered, it's also. So this Brisa or Mishnah, whatever it is, Brisa must argue on Rabbi Zira. Okay? So the Maisa, we come to the conclusion that the Yerushalmi is learning the whole time that the platforms are one on top of each other. Sometimes there's a third platform which may be staggered or not staggered, but at least two platforms are on top of each other in all the scenarios discussed here. Okay, Chotzer Shipuchusa Mi Arba Amos. A Chotzer which is less than 4 by 4 Amos, and Shofchen L'Socha Mayim B'Shabbos. Can't pour water on in Shabbos. Why? Because it's not large enough to contain the entire water usage of a human being over the course of a Shabbos, and therefore water will flow out of the courtyard, and it looks like you're causing water to flow in Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. Eli can also allow uka, unless you made in it a drainage ditch, machzekes sign which holds 2 kev from the hole wherever the water comes in, milamaton and below. And this drainage pipe doesn't have to necessarily be in your courtyard. It can even be outside your courtyard. Ella, however, that if it goes outside your courtyard, so then the ditch has to be covered. Because it's not covered, it looks like you're causing your water to go into Rosh Hashanah, right? The same old problem. It has to be a covered ditch. If it's on the inside, you don't have to cover the ditch, because of course it's not going to a separate shus. If you have a drain pipe which is covered for the length of 4 amos and it's a shus harabim, shofel and sochel mayim Shabbos, so I have to spill water into the Shabbos, because it's probably 4 amos is long enough for all the water you spill over the course of a Shabbos on a normal Shabbos to actually sink into the ground, get absorbed into the ground. Sure, in 4 amos it'll come out the other side, and that's why it's also. Afilu gago chotzer mea ama. Even if you have a gag or a chotzer, which is 100 square amos, lo yishpoch al pi abiv. You're not allowed to pour water into the drainage pipe, which leads into a shus harabim, even if it's covered, because it looks like you intentionally want the water to go out in shus harabim. Have a shogel al gag. What you can do is do it indirectly. Pour on your roof, vein yorin labivin, and indirectly it goes down into the sewage, which goes down to Rosh Hashanah.
So, it sounds like you can't use a sink or a toilet.
Well, that's underground, so that's okay.
Because it's not being seen.
Yeah.
But if it would be an open...
it would be a problem. That would be a problem, right? According to Chacham, we don't pass like Chacham. We pass as long as it's closed, it's okay. An open drainage pipe would not be a problem. It has to be a closed drainage pipe. Chacham said it's even a problem with the closed drainage pipe if it looks like you're intentionally putting it in a drainage pipe, which will lead the water out on Shabbos. But we don't paskin like them. We say as long as we don't have that chumrah. If you have a courtyard and a gazebo next to each other, they join together and make arba amos, in which you can spill water on Shabbos. If you have 2 rows of houses, one opposite the other, Miktsasim Osu Uka, some of them made a drainage pipe. Miktsasim Losu Uka, the others did not. Esha Osu Uka, those who made the drainage pipe can spill the water out. Esha Losu Uka, those who did not, Asur, and they're forbidden. Not because they're spilling the water is in itself a problem. We're afraid they're going to go into the drainage pipe and carry stuff there. Theoretically, they could spill the water in front of their house and let it go into the drainage pipe and then go out. but we're afraid that they're going to actually carry stuff, and they didn't make an Eruv, and that's the problem. Okay, shiur mokum tashmish lo'adam sasayim. Reason why sasayim is because that's the amount of water a person uses on a Shabbos. Varb amos mavlil sasayim, and 4 amos that sasayim can sink into the ground. Nikvo ma'uka. What if the drainage pipe has holes in it? Each tiny ain't levuk. Some say you don't have to stop up the holes, even though the water leaks out through the hole into Rishus HaRabim. These tiny does say tzarich levuk. You got to stop up the holes. Nismalo uka. What if the water, the drain is full? Can you keep pouring water there nonetheless? Since for Rabbanu we're matir. Each tiny tzarich lishpol. Some say no. First you have to spill off some. Each tiny ain't tzarich. Let's say l'maisa. Once you made a drainage that fulfills the parameters Chacham require, you don't have to do any more than that. Even if now in this scenario, water is actually going to spill just right because it's full. Amrai Mona said, Chad Tano. It's 1 Tana each thing. Madamar tzarich lepuk. He who says you gotta close up any holes should be tzarich lishpoch. Holes you gotta pour off any. If it's full, you have to pour out some so it doesn't keep on getting filled up. Madamar ain't tzarich lepuk. He says you don't have to stop up the hole. Holds should be ain't tzarich lishpoch. You don't have to spill up any excess water. Amar Bechia bar Morie. Hachi Amar Rabbi Yonah Avich. This is what Rabbi Yonah if your father said. Hava should be ba katafras. If there was a slope in your yard, mibifnim afilu yoiser, it should be mikashir is mutter. So you can put in even more water. Why? Because even more on the basis of sign. Because since there's a slope, it collects more water. However, if mibachutz, if the slope was outside, afilu pachos mikashir, even less of shear is also because much more water is going to go outside. We're talking about where it's a flat chotzer and then it's specifically 4 amos, base assignment 4 amos, no more, no less.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Good evening.
Hi.
Okay, so we're doing Eruvin. Nun Hey Amud Beis, which is the end of the 8th parak. Okay, so Mishtatim. Okay, so we are we'll have to do the last 20 lines or so in the parak, but let's take a look back in the Mishnah on Nun Hey Amud Aleph. Okay. Chotzer shipsucha me'arba amos. A chotzer, chotzer which is less than. Let me just check that recording to make sure. Hold on a second. Yes, chotzer shipsucha me'arba amos. This is if a chotzer does not have 4 amos in its expanse, which can dissipate sewage water, which you are emptying into it. In other words, our problem is like this: you're throwing sewage water out into your chotzer. It may then travel into Rishus HaRabim. It may not. So what midrabanan, there should not be a problem because you only pour the water into your chotzer. Not midaraisa, it should not be a problem because you only pour the water into your chotzer. But Rabbanan came and said you have to have at least 4 amos. In other words, 4 by 4 amos in your chotzer in order to allow you to pour the sewage water there, in order not to be concerned that it's going to go out into Rishus HaRabim. Right? That's the saying here. Chotzer shipchusa me'arba amos ain't shovin l'sucha mayim. Shabbos elikin osla uka. Unless you make for it uka, and uka is a tunnel, a sewage drainage tunnel. Marzekes sasayim, which can hold 2 sa'ah of drainage water, mina nekev, below the hole, milamatan, underneath, ben mivnim, ben mibachutz. And this tunnel, it doesn't matter where it goes. If it's underground, it can be inside the chotzer, outside the chotzer, as long as the opening is in the chotzer, right? Thing is like this: if it's outside your courtyard, there you for sure have to cover it over. You have to enclose it. On the inside, as long since it's a ditch, it's good enough. But you don't have to cover it over, right? Rabbi Elazar Nagomer
Biv shu kamur arba'am shusarabim. If you have a biv, which is a sewage canal, which is covered over, and it goes 4 amos shusarabim. Shofcho l'sochel mayim b'Shabbos. You can pour water into them. Chaz chamrim afilu gag or chotzer mea amah lo yishpoch pnei abiv. Even if you have a gag or a chotzer which is 100 amos in its extent, you shouldn't, and there's 100 amos between where you're standing and the exits to the beef of Rishus Harabim. You shouldn't pour directly into the beef. You shouldn't pour. I'm sorry. You shouldn't pour on the. Yeah, you shouldn't. I'm not sure why. Well, I'm not sure about the gag. Why you need the gag? But anyway, the point is like this: if you pour, you should never pour directly into that sewage ditch, right? Because maybe they're going to go directly outside your kotzer. But show to a gag, you can pour on the indirectly on the roof, and you're in Laviv. Again, this is all the rabbanos, right? So even if you have this covered ditch, which goes through surviving, we shouldn't pour directly into it. You should pour from a distance. Either, I guess, even in the chutzner, no matter, it's not good. You should, if you're close, I don't know how far away, it's not clear here, but certainly if you have a roof, you should pour from the roof down into the chutzner, and then it should go out. Okay? HaChutzner v'Achsadra mitzarfim me'arba amos. The chutzner and the Achsadra, they're two different areas, but they both join together to make arba amos, which Kama you can pour from 4 amos away. As long as you have 4 amos square. Shreid zu connected zu, you have two parallel balconies, right? And one of them, which are parallel to each other, mitzasen asu uka. Some of them made a kind of a raised pipe, a horizontal pipe, not horizontal, a vertical pipe. What would you call that? I don't know what you call it, but it's like they made like a mound with a hole in the middle of it, right? So some of them made an uka, those who made an uka, those who have that drainage hole can drain into the hole, and those who do not make the uka are assuming they're forbidden to use it unless they make an eruv with those people who did make it. Okay, because it belongs to the people who made the uka, and the other people are also to use it because if they're not part of an eruv with the people who made it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So far, good.
Good. Okay, so let's turn now to Amud Beis. Masnisa Pliga, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. So, okay, Masnisa Pliga al Rabbi Yochanan. Our missions argues Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan holds that a chutzner has to, you have to have specifically dalit al dalit, exactly dalit al dalit, in order to be able to pour in the drainage water. How so? How chutzner of sajim mitzdarfin. Because it says a flutz, a chutzner, and a chsadra mitzdarif. And we assume they're not on the same level, right? There's a step up, a step down, and therefore it's not 4x4 precisely because it's not one expanse. So, but the love is shove it. So when it says no, it's not about whether their floors are even, and therefore it is 4x4 as necessary, right? Is that clear?
Yeah, I didn't get it. What's it mean, Patra Labashava?
We're assuming that the Chutzner of Sadra are the Gemara Havamina was that the Chutzner of Sadra are different levels, right? The Sadra is higher than the Chutzner, and therefore it's not 4x4 precisely because how can they join together on 2 levels to make up 4x4? Marcus answers that they are on the same level. Shava means there's no step between the 2 of them, so that's why they can join together and make up the 4x4.
Okay.
Okay. Now it's the Masnisa Pliga. Reb Chaim Kanievsky changes this also to Rabbi Yochanan. Not Rabbi Shlokish. He says, Hamir Pesach Hagab Achotzim starving by Armonos. It says, this Brisa, which says, Hamir Pesach Hagab in a Chotzer, which surely are different levels, right? A porch, a roof, and a yard, are mitzvah and Arba Amos. Right? So, if you were, the Gemara gives the obvious answer. Rabbi Chino, oh, he b'shaveh. No, they're all on the same level. Which is a little bit difficult, but okay, it's possible, right? And you should know this is the case. It's Tani. Habayis v'aliyah v'chotzer v'achsadra aim mitzdarfim. Right? It says in another brisa that all these things don't combine together to make Dalal Dalet. So the Shinui in the Schos in the bottom changes the word Lamed Vav here to Lamed Aleph. And it says, so therefore said, Lo b'shein shovin. Is it not that that's where they're not on the same level? So in other words, they're two different brises. They seem to contradict each other. One says all these structures join together. The other say all these structures don't join together. One is talking about where the expanse is equal. That's where they join together. Not equal. On the same level, that's where they join together. The other say about where they're not on the same level. There the expanses don't join together. Okay?
Okay.
Maybe Elizabeth Yaakov Shneim Amru Davar Echad. Maybe Elizabeth Yaakov both hold the same thing. What is it? Rabbi Elazar Yaakov Ditnina. Rabbi Elazar Yaakov Omer Biv Shekamur Arba Amos Shusa Rabim. This is a drainage canal which is covered over 4 Amos Shusa Rabim Shokam Mayim B'Shabbos. Chacham Omrim Afilu Gag L'Chotzim Me'ama Lo Yishmach Api Abiv. Even if a gag or chutz 100 amos, you shouldn't pour directly on the beef. This is bothering me. I have to tell you, I fudged over this in the Mishnah. I'm sorry. Let's go back and figure out exactly what this means. So look at the carbon 8 on the Mishnah. Right?
Okay.
Lo yishmach api abiv. You see that carbon 8 on?
No.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 12 lines down the wide lines in the carbonator.
No yishmach api aviv, okay.
Klamar b'socha charitz. You can't, if the canal begins in your yard, and even has 100 amos going until it goes into Rishus Harabim, you can't pour directly into the charitz. Even though it's 100 amos, and perhaps it can all get absorbed in the ground by the time it reaches the drainage canal in Rishus Harabim, right? Came into the Begufei Shafich Mekal Chilahedyon. Since you pour it directly into the ditch, it's going to roll out, or potentially roll out all the way into Rishus Harabim, right? Directly and with strength, Rishus Harabim. And a person who sees this happening says, oh, he must have poured them not 100 amos away, but right next to the Rishus Harabim. And that's why they gushed out into Rishus Harabim. So therefore, he can never pour directly into the ditch. He has to, even if there's 100 amma distance from the beginning of the ditch next to his house to the end of the ditch where it leaves his courtyard and goes down to Rishus Harabim. He has to pour either onto his chotzer or onto his gag, and from there it can drip or flow into the ditch. Okay, that's his opinion.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to Gemara. So, let's talk about Biba, Shkamish, around Shishram, Bishon, about Mayim, B'Shabbos, I mean, a few gag or chotzer me'amol leishmach a piabiv. Can I pour directly into the beef itself, even if it's 100 amos distant from its exit into Rishus Harabim? What's that Meir? Ramir says the Tennessee Lona Shebakrochim. If you have pipes in the cities, this is just a kind of like a tangential statement, but I'm teaching now ancient Roman history, and the Romans actually had lead pipes, so it could be referring to a lead pipe. Silona Shebakrochim, Apapi Shinukuvim. Even though they have holes in them, Yishpoch l'sochom mayim b'Shabbos. I have no idea what he's talking about. So let's see what the Korban says. Shilona shebrachim shem yotzim Rishus Harabim yotzim Arba Amos. Okay, so you have these lead pipes which go out to Rishus Harabim. They're more than 4 amos. Even though they are spilling out into Rishus Harabim, you can pour into them. How is it the same as Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov? Chachamim ones who asked it, right? Chachamim said that you can't do this. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov said you can pour directly into the sewage canal. You don't have to pour into the chutz around the gog. You pour directly into the canal, and it sounds like even directly from the edge of your property, you can pour it into Rishus Harabim, into the drainage canal into Rishus Harabim, as long as it's covered over. Meir says the same thing. He's not talking about a drainage canal. He's talking about a pipe. He says you can pour directly into the pipe. It's a similar principle, though, right?
Right.
You pour directly into the pipe, which goes into Rishus Harabim. Okay. Obviously, the kuva means even though they have a hole and they're going to Rishus Harabim, shafik tocham mayim b'Shabbos. Didn't rain there. The tiny came. We also learned in Raisa. Im hoysam as chela, if there is a trough which goes underneath the surface of the earth. Im onas geshamimhu, it's the rainy season. Mutar, you're permitted to pour directly into that drainage canal, a drainage trough. Tzinoras mekalchimbo. And pipes which pour into that trough. Here's a critical change. The Chaim Kanievsky name of the Gra says, right? Mutar. It's also permissible, right? And so the way he explains this line, it means it's all one long thing. If it's the rainy season and lots of water is draining into this major trough, and you can't tell the water which you're pouring in now from the water which is already flowing there, it's mutter to pour in. Okay? So it's not quite like Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Elazar ben Yaakov both seem to say that even if there is no other water, otherwise the pipe or the drainage canal is dry, you can still pour your sewage directly into it. But here it's saying that if it's the rainy season and there's already water flowing into the drainage ditches, then you can pour your water in, your sewage water as well, and you don't have to make any shinui, make any distinction. Okay? So V'hatani Bar Kapora, do we learn that Bar Kapora said, Im hayam makom sanua mutar, if it's a private place, right, it's permissible. So it sounds like a question, but according to the Gra, it's not a question, it's evidence. It's a proof that just like in a place which is sanua, which nobody can see, it's okay. So to a place where there's lots of water, since nobody can draw a distinction, it's also okay. That's as long as it's not apparent to the public that you're pouring sewage water directly into Rishus Harabim, it's fine. Regardless of whether it's because of Makom Tsanua or because there's a lot of rainwater anyway. Okay? Hadapiga Rav Leis Le Kiyum. He says that this argues on Rav, and it doesn't have a Kiyum, meaning you can't sustain this price according to Rav. Why is that? The Rav Amar Kosher Asim Shum Amaris Ein Afilu Chadri Chadoim Asur, because Rav holds that everything which is us, because Maris Ein is forbidden even B'Chadri Chadoim, and in fact, the Yerushalmi does not paskin like Rav. The Yerushalmi paskins that Maris Ein is muter B'Chadri Chadoim. And in the Pavli also, it's not so simple that we paskin like Rav. It's commonly assumed that we paskin like Rav, that everything which is usur, because Maris Ein is also usur to do in Chadri Chadoim in secret. But the Yerushalmi certainly doesn't paskin like Rav, and it's not clear in the Bible either. So therefore, like any rule, there are exceptions to the rule. Even though we normally paskin everything that is us, because Maris Ein is even also Chadri Chadoim, that's only where we paskin that way. Now we don't paskin that way. For example, there's a famous case in Sukkah, where if you come and your clothes are wet and you come home, you're allowed to lay them down in your yard to dry out in the sun. And the question is obviously, so evidently it's not even going to Rav. It's not a blanket principle. There's certain case, it has to be a case where Chadri Chadorim is also potentially something which can be seen. Not something which is and mistaken. Not something which cannot be seen or mistaken. But in any event, that's the question how to reconcile sugyas in the Bavli. The Yerushalmi does not hold like Rav. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's it for today. I don't have the next thing we do, I have to bring a different Gemara, which I then brings me to Detroit. Okay, so I'm to show next week. We will continue with the next missing tape.
All right, sure.
Okay, take care.
Bye.